Welcome back. A group of ancient looted artefacts is heading back to their rightful home with some controversy attached. Now, the bronzes, similar to these, were stolen from the West African kingdom of Benin in the late 1800s during the colonial period. The kingdom was located within modern-day Nigeria. Well, the priceless artefacts ended up in museums across Europe, and now some of those institutions are giving them back, but not all of them. Our Scott McLean joins us now from London with the details. Good to see you, Scott. So finally, some European institutions are handing back some of those priceless artefacts.
Yeah, that's right, Linda. And it's not just the Kingdom of Benin that you mentioned, it's also the country of Benin that in recent days have had these priceless artifacts and artworks returned to them. Now, all of these objects were taken by French and British troops in the 1890s, and here we are, more than 120 years later, and we're still talking about them. And that's because more and more European museums and institutions are rethinking what to do with large swaths of their collections that were taken by force or by otherwise highly questionable methods during the colonial era, and undoubtedly, attitudes within those institutions are shifting.
Though the tools are now modern, in West Africa they've been casting bronze sculptures like this for centuries. But thousands of the region's oldest and most famous pieces of art aren't here. For well over a century, they've been in museums across Europe. But maybe not for much longer. French President Emmanuel Macron was there for the official handover of 26 artifacts that had been stolen from what is now the country of Benin in the 1890s. That government is still seeking thousands more. In the UK, the universities of Aberdeen and Cambridge are returning sculptures from the Kingdom of Benin, now part of Nigeria.
When one sees a wrong that is so egregious, the only institutional question one can ask is how to right that wrong.
They're called the Benin Bronzes, looted by British troops 124 years ago, then auctioned off to museums across Europe. 136 of them still sit inside a museum at Cambridge University, which is now trying to figure out how best to give them back.
It's been made very clear to us that members of the court, members of the public in that part of Nigeria do not forget about what happened in 1897. If it's right to return material that was looted by the Nazis to the descendants of the people from whom it was taken, we should apply the same logic if the people from whom things were taken are in Africa or elsewhere.
The German government also plans to hand back its Benin Bronzes next year, but not everyone agrees on the principle of returning artifacts taken by foreign powers. Some argue they're safer in European museums. The British Museum, which still houses the famous Elgin marbles taken from Greece more than 2 centuries ago, also has more than 900 Benin Bronzes. It says it's happy to share, but it has not committed to returning them.
Where do you draw the line on all this? I mean, this happened more than 120 years ago. If this happened 200 years ago or 500 years ago, would we be having this same discussion today?
I think we make case-by-case decisions. It's not about an arbitrary cut-off point. One of the significant factors in the Benin case is that the court is still there. The people are still there. We have had members of the Benin royal family right in this space.
In Nigeria, a brand new museum of West African art is opening, which will house many of the returned artifacts.
We've been expectant of these objects for over a century now. I was born into the struggle, so we're happy about it.
And now, these handovers are small in number compared to the total number of these priceless artifacts that may one day change hands. And so some people in West Africa, Linda, wonder why this is being done so incrementally and why these European museums and institutions can't just hand back the whole lot all at once. Well, in the case of the British Museum, for instance, British law actually prevents it from handing back any of its Benin Bronzes, even if it wanted to. In the case of the Cambridge Museum, well, they are waiting for that brand new museum to be built in Nigeria before handing back their bronzes. And I asked the museum director in Cambridge about any concerns about the safety and security of these objects once they're sent back. And he acknowledged that, of course, Nigeria has serious security concerns, but he said that at the end of the day, even European museums and institutions are not immune from theft. Linda?
All right, Scott McLean, a great report there. We're going to stay on this story. Our thanks to you. We're going to take a deeper dive now. Veteran journalist Barnaby Phillips wrote extensively about the stolen artefacts in his book, Loot Britain and the Benin Bronzes. Barnaby Phillips joins us now from London. Good to have you with us, Barnaby.
Thank you, Linda.
So Germany is moving to return some of these stolen artefacts, some 1,300 or more pieces, to Nigeria next year. But the largest collection is in the British museums. We often hear that their hands are tied because of this 1963 law. You've been speaking to your sources at the British Museum. Is that a convenient excuse?
Well, I think it certainly has been a convenient excuse for British Museum trustees and curators and directors in the past, and the museum has been accused of hiding behind the law, not being energetic enough in looking ways to get around it. But I also think that the law is a reality, and to a certain extent the museum's hands are tied. Ultimately, this would be a political decision for a British government to amend that law. And at the moment here in the United Kingdom, we have a Conservative government. It's got a comfortable majority in Parliament. It doesn't have to call a general election before 2024. And it has made it quite clear that it does not believe that difficult, contentious collections should be broken up in order to redress past wrongs. And I also think this is a bit of an inopportune moment for the British Museum's trustees and curators to take on the British government, should they be inclined to do so. And that is because of the coronavirus pandemic, which has weakened the British Museum's position financially, more than a 90% fall in admissions and commercial revenue last year. A typical year, it might get 6 million visitors. Last year, it got barely 160,000. And so this is an awkward time for the British Museum to be picking fights with the government.
Yeah, not a great time possibly to create sort of political waves, if you like. But when we listen to the culture minister in Germany, who says that it's out of moral responsibility that these should be sent back to Nigeria, surely Britain has a greater moral imperative, given that it really was British troops that took most of those, right?
I think most people would agree with you. Indeed, it's important not to generalise about British museums with a capital with an S at the end, as opposed to the British Museum. However, because different institutions in the United Kingdom have different freedoms to act and are choosing to act in different ways. In that report there, you heard that the universities of Aberdeen, Cambridge have already taken action. I expect that university museums, also Oxford, perhaps Edinburgh, are also likely to take action. I think what you're going to see is that the British Museum itself, with a capital B and a capital M, is increasingly isolated. But curators at the museum are very conscious of that sense of being isolated.
And just finally, it is one thing to agree to the restitution. It's another thing navigating the logistics. Who do they transfer the bronzes to once they make up their minds that that is even a possibility?
Well, Nigerian politics are complicated, undoubtedly. There are three bodies in Nigeria that have a vested interest in the future of the Benin Bronzes and the Benin Bronzes coming back. One is the Oba, the king of Benin, and the current Oba is the great-great-grandson of the man the British toppled in 1897. Obviously, he has enormous moral authority. There is a local state government, the Edo state government, which also wants to be involved. And then there is the federal government of Nigeria, which is the legal body through which international returns should be made. And these three institutions and the individuals within them at different times have had different agendas. And this is a big moment for Nigeria culturally, politically, and it'll be very interesting to see whether they seize this moment, use the potential to the maximum, because indeed there are awkward aspects of this story for Nigeria as well. Its government-run museums already do have a superb collection of Benin Bronzes. They've had them for many decades, and they've done a poor job, I think it's fair to say, at exhibiting them. And in a few notorious cases, they failed to prevent their theft back onto the international art market, or indeed back to Western museums.
All right, Barnaby Phillips, author of Loot, Britain and the Benin Bronzes. Good to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with much more.